fire from top politicians in what is perceived to be a coordinated attempt to tame his hustler nation narrative. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta and the National Super Alliance Brigade, led by ODM leader Raila Odinga, Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka, NC's Musalia Mudavadi, and Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula, have alternated in days of an onslaught against Ruto, who is angling to succeed his boss in 2022. Now, the vigor of the political attacks and the intensity of the bombardment has turned into a duel characterized by threats and name-calling. Ruto's campaign for the presidency is tagged around the Hustler Nation, a campaign slogan he claims is meant to uplift the lives of the common person. So let's talk to Gabriel Mudhuma on this story. Mr. Mudhuma joining us from a city center studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Brenda.
Now, we are talking about the Hustler Nation narrative and taming the Deputy President, William Ruto. So take us through the possible, the political possible ways on how the DP can be tamed by the Kieleweke, wing.
Thank you, Brenda, for having me. Well, it's been actually a flurry of activities. And more than anything now, we are starting to see this so-called hustler narrative continuing to build up. You have now young men who are calling themselves hustler, and they believe that they are building this nation that seeks to have them get an identity or get recognition, a political recognition, if you will. However, at the same time, this hustler narrative, seem to have wronged some of our politicals the wrong way. The likes of Raila Odinga, you've heard Raila Odinga more than once actually chastise it, and to an extent of calling it takataka. You've heard Musalia Mudavadi talk about the same thing. You just recently heard about Kalonzo Musyoka as well. Also kind of chastise it, on the same way. And what they are saying is that they feel this narrative, as you put it, Brenda, is creating some element of a class war. Now, I do not expect, from where I'm seated, I do not expect that narrative to die down, primarily because the Deputy President believes this is a platform which he can use to ride, and create a serious political outfit. So being somebody, as I've said before, a politician of no mean feat, I think, is going to write this narrative for quite a long time.
So, Mudhuma, you're saying that it will be hard to tame the DP politically?
Actually, it's going to be hard. Let me tell you, Brenda, I've always said, when you have politicians who have reached that pinnacle, if you will, the likes of Raila Odinga, the likes of Deputy William Ruto, the likes of His Excellency the President, these are people who have serious backing behind them. So if they find, most of the time, if they find a narrative that works for them, that is how politicians do. They ride on it. You may remember Jubilee came with these great ideas of digital versus, there was that mantra, digital versus the old school, or so they called it. And tell you what, Brenda, they rode on that element of digital or digital leaders, if you will, the young Turks, if you will. So we are going to see that kind of sloganeering until 2022.
Right, but then, Mudhuma, let me just take you back memory lane. Just this week, the president was talking, was addressing the, can I say nation? Or listeners of 4 Kikuyu radio stations, right? He said, and this is the first time he's also said what I'm about to tell you. He said that when a lion is rained on, I don't think that lion is weak, I may be rained on looking like a rained on cat, but I'm not weak. I'll come back, and tell you how it is. And he was talking to people who were allied to the DP. He was talking to the DP himself. Is it not that, wasn't he not telling Ruto, like, you'll be tamed soon, watch your back politically?
Well, I think the president has actually marked 2 things. One, he realizes he does not have much time, and he has key agendas that he needs to deliver. Remember, he has a promise, or Jubilee has a promise with the Kenyan people. So at the end of the day, you have the president in his radio address You heard him more than once saying that there are promises that I promised, and I want you, or he was saying, hold me against those deliverables. He was saying, once I'm done, then you can come and we can have this conversation. You will ask me, Mr. President, you promised this. Have you done? You promised that. Were you able to accomplish it? So it seems he has an agenda which he wants to accomplish. But at the same time, there is this element of politicking, which he was actually addressing. And he was saying, you know, do not feel that I do not understand what the goings on of the moment. Do not think that I do not see what is happening. I still have, or I still own the bigger picture. And that's why he was saying, do not feel just because I'm not addressing these concerns that I do not have a skin in the game. That in real sense is what the president is trying to say.
But
and
at the same time,
why he's using such words of when you see, yeah,
but at the same time, Muthuma, the president seems to be a worried man because of the DP's inroads in the central region.
You see, Brenda, again, I think that has been a misconception because the president has made it very clear that come 2022, he's going home. And I know he made a banter the other day that, you know what, if there's something that will be brought forward for me to do, then he'll do it gladly, or so he said. But you see, you have certain personalities who are eyeing 2022. So they are going to run more than him, justifiably so, because he said he's getting out of this, this political realm. That doesn't mean he may not have something else to do. He probably could be the leader of Jubilee. Who knows? But that notwithstanding, there's the issue of people who will now want to focus on his ground, and this is Mount Kenya. It's not only the deputy president, but you have seen also Honorable Raila Odinga trying to make inroads in Mount Kenya. Musalia Mudavadi has tried making inroads to Mount Kenya. Kalonzo Musyoka is just doing the same, because let's face it, and you know, these are the facts, that you have a region that carries a serious voting bloc that is very important to any person who feels that they can run the presidency race.
So that's the reason as to why, if I may go with what you're saying, Muthuma, that's the reason as to why the likes of, Honorable Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi are a bit, they feel threatened by Ruto's desire to run for presidency, for the 2022 presidency?
Again, the fact remains, if you look at the grand scheme of things, Deputy President William Ruto seemed to have an upper edge as far as Mount Kenya is concerned over the others. And that is probably how he has sold himself to that region. But again, in politics, we are told one day, Brenda, is a long time. And things are bound to change. So you are going to see a lot of political courtship. And here is where many would-be presidential candidates want to court this region. I know a lot of goodies are going to be thrown their way if they are not going to have a candidate on the ballot box. So I think this we are going to see this kind of narrative evolving towards 2022. But at the end of the day, we have to be sincere with ourselves, Brenda. That in politics is whoever sells themselves better, who wins. Who wins that seat. So again, it will depend on several other things. It will depend on who he picks as a running mate. And I've heard people talk about it. It's no longer coffee talk. It will depend on the kind of development agenda that he brings to that region. It will also depend on a lot of other things, strategically, politically, if you will, that he also brings to that particular region.
But then, Muthuma, before I get into the deeper discussion about this topic that you're having today, this political discussion about taming the second in command, we're talking about, and you've put it very clearly and very well, for Kenyans and our viewers at large, about the sort of goodies that, people in Mount Kenya region will be given in terms of development projects. But then that is something that Honorable Raila Odinga has been using against the DP, saying that you cannot say the government is not delivering, yet you are in the same government.
That is true. By the way, that is true. And that's why I've insisted, Brenda, the price of Jubilee will be what they promised vis-a-vis what they've delivered. Okay? What will their scorecard look like? You told us about increasing or making the economy better. You told us about increasing our agriculture footprint. You talked about digitizing the schools. You talked about roads. You talked about hospitals. You talked about electricity. What have you been able to achieve? So, depending on how their scorecard looks like, then I believe Kenyans will make their choice and they will make their judgment when that time comes. However, you cannot take lightly what Honorable Raila is saying. You have been in the same government. You promised this. What have you been able to achieve? And that's why I feel if at all that center or that question is going to come towards 2022, then Jubilee, and in particular the deputy president, joined, if he is able to join the president, they must move very quickly to ensure that they cover so much ground so that their scorecard can reflect that which they promised.
But then
to answer you, Brenda, yes, that is a very valid question that keeps coming up.
But then how can the DP himself join hands with the president and to ensure that they deliver the promises they promised Kenyans during the first and the second term, yet he feels left out of the government after the handshake?
Well, currently, right now, as you put it, it's quite unfortunate because we can see the division. You had, when the president addressed again the nation, he talked about certain things which he thought they would have achieved by now. The other thing, you also had him in the Bomas, at the Bomas when they were launching the BBI. You had him say how they started with his deputy president, and he said, I wanted us to go in this direction, but he made a banter when he said, my deputy president decided to run this other way. Now, that notwithstanding, to the voter who placed their hopes, to the voter who also did their work by voting in this administration, what will they feel has been accomplished? What desires do they have to see next? Remember, there is a set of agenda, as I call them the Big Four agenda, which are very critical to how this country is going to be shaped in the future. Where are those going to be left? Now, right, I'll agree, Brenda, that I've been a very serious advocate and evangelist for the Big Four agenda, because I verily know, Brenda, that they are going to be a game changer in this country of ours.
All right.
Where will that leave the Jubilee administration? Fully well knowing that these great agendas do not need to end with this administration. Yes, Jubilee may have started with them, but any administration coming in must be sober enough to see the validation of these great agendas. Because I tell you what, Brenda, they cut across our political divide. All Kenyans need great health care. All Kenyans need to be food secure. All Kenyans need decent housing. We need to have employment through manufacturing. So we must build on the better while we tone down on the rhetoric of politics.
Well said, Muthuma. But then let's look at now taming the DP. And are we likely politically look at it like, you know, just last week, if I'm not wrong, over the weekend, you know, the DP was saying your threats, you've not used threats to intimidate us. And 2 weeks ago, he was saying about some of his lieutenants being sought after by the government. Some have been taken to court, some the bank accounts have been frozen. Is it the government, you know, can I say that this is a political way of taming the DP through his lieutenants, his political soldiers on the ground?
Well, Brenda, again, at this point, I don't see anybody trying to tame the person of the Deputy President, William Ruto. I think they will be doing that in futility. What needs to come out clearly is what agenda do you have versus what he has. And I think in politics, many people will tell you, you don't spend a lot of time trying to decampaign the other. Remember, this is how Jubilee won against NASA. They did not spend a lot of time really decampaigning NASA. What they did is that they set their agendas forth and they sold their manifesto to Kenyans. Because tell you what, if you are going to decampaign the other person, you're going to spend a lot of energy. Strategically, every person will tell you that is not the way to go. What you do is that you sell yourself so well to the voter that they are going to understand that which you're selling and how it is going to make or how it's going to change their lives. That is how you win elections. But if you are going to start saying that you're going to start the campaigning or trying to, you know, to try and sit or unbalance the other person, you are going to spend a lot of energy and in the wrong direction.
So, Muduma, then let's look at the other side of the coin, because you're saying, you know, the political tax on DP's lieutenants is not as a way of taming the DP indirectly. But then now what about that threat of impeaching the deputy president if he doesn't resign? Well,
again, let's be honest. Another exercise in futility. At this point, that's what you want to do. At this point, we have so many things which are going to, which can make change. First of all, you're talking about BBI. That needs to be the point of focus. You're also talking about addressing a myriad of challenges, COVID being one of them. So, I mean, before you start wrecking in or before you start bringing in people to start setting such a motion, where is the time? Where is the time, Brenda? We don't know. I would really probably encourage our political class right now to look at things that are going to change positively this country. You know, now introducing such motions, I think, like I said, it's an exercise in futility. It's just a waste of time and money.
But then, Muduma, then that means, you know, because the reason as to why that talks, you know, by Honorable Savula of impeaching the deputy president, he says that the DP is disrespecting the first in command, his boss, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta. This has been brought up by that narrative of the Hustler Nation. And this Hustler Nation narrative has actually been bought by several Kenyans, you know, people who say we are hustling every day to make all ends meet. This Hustler narrative, then how can, you know, the Jubilee Party, party leader, President Uhuru Kenyatta, get rid of this hustler narrative? I mean, even ODM leader Raila Odinga needs to get rid of this hustler narrative as a way of just trying to tell Kenyans, don't buy the hustler narrative, let's buy the narrative of let's build Kenya and make every Kenyan have a job, ensure that there's food on the table.
Guess what, Brenda? You can fight any narrative you want very easily by offering a safe alternative. This is what we are bringing versus what this other candidate or this other group is calling for. And that's why I said politics is about courtship. It's about telling the voter, this is what I'm offering. This is a safer solution. Remember, sloganeering in politics will always be there. It will always be with us. The first time of Jubilee, you had the digital versus the analog, right? And I believe this is the same kind of setup that it has been introduced. And it's not going to go away, this slogan. But what can change is by offering a safe alternative. That way, Kenyans will come in knowing, hey, hang on a minute. This to me makes more sense than this other. And let me tell you, by invoking certain such safe narratives, you will end up with educating the masses. Right. And always, let me tell you, Brenda, common sense has always won the day. It is where Kenyans are going to say, I would rather be this than that. Give them a choice where they'll be knowing that they also have their skin in the game. And that way, you'll be able to get more followers than just, you know, blanketing yourself to fighting something which is gaining momentum by the day. So you are going to have, like I'm telling you, this narrative is not going away. What we can offer is a safer narrative.
So Muduma, you're saying that the president should not be worried about this Hustler Nation narrative? Because he seems worried if you had what he said in that interview with the 4 Kikuyu radio stations, when he even gave an example of that innocent Kenyan whose vehicle was banned.
You see, the confusion I would see coming up is what may be created out of it. If people get excited, like the president is getting worried, is that it will create the us versus them. Now, we don't need such a thing in this country. We don't need to have a narrative of the haves and the have-nots. That will actually bring this country to civil strife. Bannon, what we need to have is a conducive environment where we are saying, guys, come, let us sit together. Let us reason. How are we going to have a positive impact to our fellow countrymen? How are we going to have a transformative agenda? How are we going to work such a narrative that we stop this sloganeering? Because there is, and we cannot run away from this, Brenda, there is a deficiency in understanding. And that is why you will see people are starting to call others dynasties. People are starting to call others hustlers.
The hustlers.
Now,
all right.
if there's no greater understanding that these are just sloganeering, people are actually going to get fed into this narrative, and it's going to be dangerous. And that's why I keep insisting we must find a safer alternative.
All right, but Muthuma, as you bring this conversation to an end, yes, it's good you're saying that there needs to be around a table sitting where they iron out the differences, which I'm not seeing this being possible. Reason being, the DP looks like he's come out gloves off. You know, bring it. The president, the same thing. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the same thing. So it's reached a point where these senior political leaders in the country, instead of talking to each other, they're actually talking at each other. And the deputy president has come out to say, your threats, you not use threats to intimidate us.
Brenda, again, you've called it right. As we see everybody, their gloves are off. It's bare knuckles. But Brenda, you see, at the end of the day, there is an example that was set yesterday, the inauguration of the current U.S. President, Joe Biden. You saw the former three presidents addressing America, and what they were doing is setting a reconciliatory tone. That needs to be replicated in this great country of ours as a matter of supreme urgency and importance, because every day that is passing, where we have sloganeering dominating the day, it goes on to show that sooner or later we are going to hit a dead or rock bottom.
All right.
And once we do that, Brenda, my worry is that we are going to have sacrificed how far we have come. And let me tell you, contrary to what the naysayers may say, we have actually built Kenya better since Kibaki. We have actually engaged ourselves to a development that wasn't there 20 years ago. We have moved to a better platform today. We have extended medical health care, whether you look at it. We are not there yet, Brenda, but we are getting there.
Thank you.
We can sacrifice all these things if our politics is not going to be set right. So that's why I'm saying, at this point, as a matter of urgency, we need to set a platform of reconciliation.
All right, thank you so much, Gabriel Muthuma, political analyst, talking to us about, that topic of that political discussion about taming the Deputy President, William Ruto. Now, on that note, allow me to take another breather here on KTN News Center. I'll be right back in a few minutes for the second hour of News Center.